The 2025 fantasy football season is over, and we've got some big takeaways for your dynasty leagues that you can use next year.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us the #1 sports podcast network. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app today, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Welcome back. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. He is the Fantasy Football Hall of Famer, Michael Fabiano. In all of our final show in 2025, we're going to talk to you guys about some of the biggest takeaways from the 2025 fantasy season that you can use in your dynasty leagues moving forward. We're going to talk about how you should be aware of the magical season. Plus, we're going to finish the show with some championship stories that I think you guys are going to get a kick out of. But let's start with this, Fabs. What were some of your kind of big picture takeaways from this 2025 season that you're going to try to use moving forward?
I think oftentimes we see talent and that's all we see. And we expect massive numbers. And I think I'm going to use the example of Ashton Jeanty here. Comes out of college, highly productive, top 10 overall pick in the draft. We typically don't see running backs go that high anymore. And we think, well, this kid's going to be, the future of fantasy football among running backs. He's a lock to be great. Even in redrafts, people are talking about him, as a first round pick. We all overlooked where he went. He went to the Raiders. Raiders aren't a good franchise. Chip Kelly, that was, maybe it was going to be a good thing for Jeanty. It didn't end up being a good thing for Jeanty. Pete Carroll, maybe the game has passed him by a little bit. Don't know if he'll be back next season. I would kind of expect that he wouldn't be. But he was good at times. And in fact, 2 weeks ago, he had a massive game. And then last week, the numbers went back down the toilet. He was inconsistent. And we overlooked the situation and the team and the play callers. And so that's something that we have to remember. As talented as a player is, okay? And I can use the example of Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones was a high draft pick of the Giants several years back. He was not good with the Giants outside of 1 year. And that was a Brian Daboll. And then we thought, well, Daboll, used his magic, and now Daniel Jones is going to live up to expectations. Well, ultimately in New York, he didn't. But you go to Indianapolis, better situation, better talent around him. All of a sudden, Daniel Jones in the first half of the year was like almost a must start in fantasy. So we have to remember that kind of thing. Same kind of thing with the Sam Darnold. And he went to New York. You don't play typically at a high level in New York as the quarterback. Historically, they've had one 4,000-yard passer in the history of that franchise, and it was Joe Namath. It's insane. So he goes to Minnesota last year and is exceptional. He's in Seattle this year, good coaching staff. He's good. He wasn't as good as he was last year, but he's still very good. And the Seahawks are on the cusp of being the #1 seed in the NFC. So I think we have to think about that more than we do. We have to think about situation. We have to think about, despite how great a player's talent might be, how is the situation that player's in going to affect him positively or negatively? And we saw that with RJ Harvey. RJ Harvey didn't get a lot of opportunities to begin the season. And then late in the season, J.K. Dobbins gets hurt. All of a sudden, RJ Harvey looks great. Why? He's in an offense that is Sean Payton's, brainchild. And so that's a big advantage to him. We have to think about that.
100%. And I think sometimes we just overlook the situation because the talent is so great. And we all love Ashton Jeanty, right? But not all situations for these first-round running backs are equal. Like, I think about the Lions who drafted Jahmyr Gibbs in, 2023? And they drafted him at 12th overall. That's a team that went 8-9 the previous year. I think it was Jamal Williams led the NFL in rushing touchdowns that year.
Which is
they
insane.
already have, Yeah, they already had the makings of a really good offensive mind. They had Penei Sewell, they had Taylor Decker. Their interior was really strong. And while yeah, drafting at 12 is never ideal, but that was a situation where this Lions offense was ready to go. And that's why he was really good out of the gate. We saw this Raiders offense with Chip Kelly, who had not been an offensive coordinator in the NFL for a while. One of the league's worst offensive lines going into the season, according to basically every metric. And we thought, Jeanty is going to get so much volume that it's not going to matter, even if he's not all that efficient. The problem is when you're a bad offense, it's really hard to get into scoring opportunities, to get those touchdowns, to be on the field. You end up being in catch-up mode all game long. And that's one of the things, if you look at like some of the top offenses in the league, the top fantasy running backs, almost all of them play in decent offenses. The only one that's not there is Bijan Robinson. And the case that I would make for Bijan is that's one of the best offensive lines in the league. They were just held back by their quarterback play most of the season, right? Like that offensive line is absolutely elite. But all these top guys, McCaffrey and Jonathan Taylor, Fabs, I think is the best example of this. When Jonathan Taylor, halfway through the season, a lot of people are calling him like the NFL MVP. Like he was on pace to break the NFL rushing record. Daniel Jones gets hurt, and then kind of not nothing, but the production goes way down. The situation matters so much, even for elite talents like Jonathan Taylor.
And quarterback matters so much, right? I mean, listen, I'm going to bring it up again. I know, you hate it, but I mean, JJ McCarthy was the reason why Justin Jefferson went down the toilet this year. When you look at all of the injuries that we saw among quarterbacks this year, and especially late in the season, I mean, last week in championship week in fantasy, how many backup quarterbacks were starting? How many third string quarterbacks were starting? Right? The Chiefs were starting a third stringer. The Vikings were starting a third stringer. So that matters. And bad quarterback play typically is not going to equate to fantasy production. And, we saw players that we had been able to lean on, every week, like set it and forget it. Quarterback situation is not good and their stats go down. And again, I think Justin Jefferson is the biggest, he's the biggest example of that because he went from elite to I can't start this guy. And I don't know I don't think I can remember a player having that in the prime of his career from one season to the next off the top of my head. And it had nothing to do with Justin Jefferson. It's not like this guy all of a sudden isn't talented. It's the quarterback and what Kevin O'Connell felt like he couldn't do. And that hurt Jefferson. It hurt Jordan Addison.
One more thing I wanted to mention is that I'm just not going to underrate the value of a good play caller and the value of a bad play caller. I think a perfect example of this is Seattle, right? Ryan Grubbs was their offensive coordinator last year, and it was an okay offense, right? It was fine. They bring in Klint Kubiak, who everybody loved when they hired him. He gets this, they under center a lot. It's a wide zone offense. And now Jackson Smith-Njigba, one of the best fantasy receivers in all of the NFL, one of the top dynasty assets. They run the ball better. Sam Darnold's playing some of the best football of his career. And on the opposite end of the spectrum, you get someone like Kevin Petula in Philadelphia, where you can take A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, Dallas Goedert, and make it a very mediocre offense. It's not fun to watch. And I think, losing Kellen Moore, who has his own flaws, but going from Kellen Moore to Petula is a massive downgrade. It's something to keep in mind when we go into, our rookie drafts next year. When you start making trades, don't underestimate the value of a really good offensive coordinator or play caller. And I think, again, Ben Johnson in Chicago, another really good example. That was a team last year that it was a pain to watch their offense. And now it's one of the most fun offenses in the league.
Yeah, I was going to mention Ben Johnson too, because, we've seen the Bears, Caleb Williams. DeAndre Swift was a fine RB2 this year. He's obviously not a high end type of player. We started to see Rome Odunze break out a little bit. Now we're seeing Luther Burden break out a little bit. We're seeing what Colston Loveland brings to the table now late in the season. So yeah, there was a lot of that. And that's something that we, again, have to really remember, as we go into fantasy drafts. Who's the coach? Who's the new coordinator? What's their history? When you talk about Greg Roman, I think a lot of the reasons why we love the Marion Hampton so much is because Greg Roman's a guy who's had success with running backs in the past, tight end as well. So that's something that you have to think about, right? So, Aranda Gaston was good for a stretch, and then he's kind of gone downhill. He had a good game last week. Probably won't play this week because the Chargers aren't going to play anybody. But those are things that we have to think about. And so moving forward, I think we have to either curb our enthusiasm in certain situations or maybe be a little bit more enthusiastic than we would be otherwise because of, like what you said, play caller, coaches, coordinators, they make a difference.
All right, let's talk about one of Fab's favorite things in the world. Beware of the magical season. He loves it. We'll get into it next. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. The NFL season is winding down, but we've got playoff games that are right around the corner, and there's nothing like being at the game, the crowd noise, the energy, cheering alongside other fans. Watching at home is great, but being in the stadium just hits different. And the frustrating part is always trying to get those tickets, waiting in the queues, dealing with logins and prices changing at checkout, make the whole process just so frustrating. But that's why I use the Game Time app, because it gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the hack for unlocking amazing NFL tickets and experiences in just a few taps. I'm looking at maybe going to a couple different playoff games this year. We might have one in Pittsburgh, might have one in Buffalo. We'll see. I was pulling up the Game Time app already in preparation for some of those games. Found some great ticket options almost instantly. The app is so easy to use. You can find your tickets right away, and you're going to get all-in pricing, so there's no surprise fees at checkout. So take the guesswork out of buying NFL tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL. That is LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today and get back to being there live. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen every single day. We'd also like to thank you for making us the #1 sports podcast network. And if you haven't done so already, become a member of the Everydayer Club. You're going to get ad-free episodes to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast, exclusive Discord server access, and so much more for just $5 a month. Check out the link in the show notes or go to lockedondynasty.supercast.com. All right, let's talk about why you should beware of the magical season. Now, I like to poo-poo some of these every once in a while. I was wrong on a couple of them for different reasons, but Fabs, explain what we mean by beware of the magical season and how that happened here in 2025.
And it happened a bunch. It's just when you see a player come out and just put up a bananas season. And, maybe it's not out of nowhere. I mean, Saquon Barkley has been a great running back. We're going to use him as an example. But he just had a ton of work last week. But I want to go and start off at quarterback. And I remember you and I having this conversation in the preseason. And I said, one of Jayden Daniels or Bo Nix is going to have a sophomore slump, because it happens almost every single season. One quarterback, one player who has a really big rookie campaign comes back to earth. And I said, there's no way it can be Jayden Daniels. There's no way it could be Jayden Daniels. It was Jayden Daniels. And Jayden Daniels hurt you this year. His points per game average dropped, while Bo Nix basically is the same. His average points per game this year is basically the same as it was last year.
Now, what would you say to people, Fabs, that are like, well, it was injury-based for Jayden Daniels? He got hurt,
but that's
hurt
all
his knee,
part
hurt
of it,
his elbow.
It's all part of it, Marcus. Like, your best ability is availability. So injuries are not an excuse. It's all part of it. He had this big year, and then obviously this year, when he did play, he was good. He wasn't as good as he was last year, but he was good. But the injuries are all part of it. Like, regardless of why it happens or how it happens, drafting Jayden Daniels was a detriment to you this year. You could also say the same thing about Sam Darnold. And I would praise Sam Darnold now in terms of what he's doing. He dropped 4 points per game on his average because he was in Minnesota last year. Different offense, very quarterback friendly, unless your name is JJ McCarthy, clearly. And now he's in Seattle, and their offense is different, under Klint Kubiak. And they don't have JJ McCarthy, and they don't have, they have Jackson Smith-Njigba. They don't have a Jordan Addison. It's a different kind of offense, and his points have gone down. So last year was Darnold's magical season, and he was never going to duplicate that. And it doesn't happen all the time. Listen,
Well,
I mean, I will say this. Like, Josh Allen has a magical season every freaking year. You know what I mean? For the
Sure.
Lamar Jackson, although Lamar had the best season of any quarterback ever in fantasy football history last year, and he's not been good this year, especially lately. So
real quick.
Yeah.
As you're talking, I was just thinking about something. One of the reasons why Daniels was not hurt, his production went down early in the season is that Terry McLaurin just wasn't on the team.
Hurt. Mm-hmm.
Right. I think that's actually a big takeaway. Terry McLaurin did not participate at all in training camp. He held out, right? And then really was a shell of himself all season long. Brandon Ayuk in 2024, he held out all training camp. He got hurt early in the season. I think that's something that we should maybe look more into, is these guys that miss a lot of training camp with contract stuff. They come back in and they're just never quite the same. I'm going to start really lowering those guys that miss a lot of training camp time, because for whatever reason, they just don't, they're just not able to produce the numbers that we saw before.
Right. I mean, it's not like a be all end all. It's not like, just a gospel thing, but it does affect you. I mean, I remember back to like Steven Jackson and Larry Johnson, going back to the golden days of running backs, back in the day. And some, Emmitt Smith held out in 93, and then he was awesome. So, it doesn't always happen, but you're right. These kind of things do happen, where if you hold out, you're not out there preparing the same way as you would otherwise if you were with your team, and you get hurt. I mean, Terry McLaurin had a magical season last year. He was one of my busts at wide receiver this year. Terry McLaurin was awesome last season, and he came crashing back down to earth. So, I mean, it happens. And especially, Marcus, when it's a player who's like been, at some certain level, and then all of a sudden he exceeds expectations exponentially, a lot of times you just can't do it again. Right. So running back, Saquon Barkley is the perfect example.
Yeah.
And I was shouting from the rooftops, don't draft him. I mean, and he ended up finishing as the RB14 this year. He averaged 14.5 points per game. You know how many points per game he averaged last year? 22.2. And he's going to fall right in line with every single trend that I mentioned. Curse of 370, 400 plus touches, regular and postseason. And I guess you can call it the curse of the 2,000-yard runner, because he's jumped right into that list. And Eric Dickerson is still the only running back who didn't see at least a 100-point decrease the following year, and his was 99 points.
Can I ask you real quick? So I think Christian McCaffrey is the obvious name that people are going to fade. He's already at 400 touches, and that doesn't include what he's going to get in week 18 and into the postseason. So he's going to be at 440, 450 at least. How about somebody like Jonathan Taylor, who's at 353? We'll see if he plays in week 17, but he's not necessarily young. He's not old like McCaffrey or Barkley either, but he's somebody that you would consider fading next year.
And Jonathan Taylor, it's not like he was a highly touted player this year like he had been in the past. Like, you could have gotten Jonathan Taylor in the second round in redrafts, and maybe even in some dynasty startups too. Ashton Jeanty went ahead of him. I mean, there's no question about that.
I'll pull up this stuff from August. Go ahead. Yep.
So yeah, I mean, like you certainly have to think about that. You guys, the thing is, and especially like this year, if no other season teaches you anything about fantasy football in the NFL, is that you got to think outside the box. I thought outside the box with Saquon Barkley. And listen, I'm not always right. I'm going to tell you that right now. I didn't want to draft Christian McCaffrey in the first round. So, bad on me. I screwed that one up. There's no doubt about that. But when you look at, I can go back to look at the article that I wrote on Sports Illustrated about like the magical season and the effects that it can have. Like Brock Bowers, he was on that list. Brock Bowers had an insane rookie year. There was no way he was doing that again. And guess what? He didn't. And he killed you. And he had that one massive game earlier in the season. But other than that, his numbers were not great this year. They were okay. They weren't great. So you can't get like wrapped up into, well, he's a big name. If I've got a resume of a player like, Lamar, for example, or Josh Allen, that does this season in and season out. Okay. I got it. Yeah. Like, that's a different story. But, when it's a McLaurin, when it's a rookie like a Bowers, even Saquon, Saquon, that was his best year by a mile since his rookie year. And so you have to look at touches, you have to look at workload, you have to look at a player's age as well, because it all factors in. Unless your name is Derrick Henry, then it doesn't matter, because Derrick Henry is the unicorn of all unicorns historically for the running back position.
By the way, Jonathan Taylor, as of the August 2025 ADP, he was the 23rd overall pick. So in your startup drafts, you get him
a
into
third
Taylor
rounder.
too. Pretty unbelievable.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about some stories from championship weekend.
Oh, I love this. We get the Twitter folks involved, man. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's some real heartbreakers out there. We'll get to some of our favorites next. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen every single day. All right, Fabs, let's close out 2025 by listening to our listeners. We've got some really good stories from championship weekend. I want you to read some of your favorites, and let's react.
All right, so this is from Arnold Davis. This is all X. He was down by more than 40 points. Then somehow Josh Allen got it together in the fourth quarter. Then the last two passes that DeAndre Swift caught put him in the lead. He won by 1.14 points. Kyle Boehm chasing 18 going into Sunday night. Purdy touchdown to Jennings, both on my team. Overcome McCaffrey, who I was playing against, to win in the final. Had to dodge a potential DJ Moore last possession points bullet as well. Sweaty.
I've got one. I want to give you from my league. This is an 18-year dynasty league we've been doing. You play one IDP player. We had a player lose their league because Jared Verse blocked a field goal returner for a touchdown. That's rough, but congratulations to the winner, the first time player Melanie in our league. She won the league for first time, 20 teams.
Out. Another crazy Marcus league.
That's fun.
I had the same thing. I was playing against Craig Allenport, a friend of mine from Athlon, and I thought I was beat. We were basically tied going into Monday night. I think I had like a point lead, and he had Puka, and I had Kyron Williams. If Puka scores that touchdown, that gets brought back because of the penalty, I lose. If Puka catches that pass on the sidelines, that was bananas, but it was a drop, I lose. And that was all at the end of the game. And so I got real lucky. I ended up winning by like just over a point.
There you go.
Here's another one. Brandon Van Zee, 6-8 regular season, got into the playoffs because of the season points tiebreaker. Hello.
Good job.
And he ended up grabbing Brock Purdy, who ended up helping him get to the championship. And he also picked up Jake Tongas. Hello. That was a big one. And Jake Tongas was great for you in a fantasy championship week.
I got another one for you. This one comes from someone named Marcus in Pennsylvania. Won a dynasty league over his brother because he picked up Jake Tongas because of the Locked On Dynasty podcast.
See,
that was me. There you go.
I got a lot more here.
Go ahead. I want to hear more.
Adam Joseph Rapper, I think. I'm sorry if I said your name wrong. First ever championship in a 14-team league. Survived the Drake May MVP game. The last minute Puka Nacua touchdown got him the win. And remember, Puka did score that touchdown late, but then he could have had another one that was called back because of a penalty. This one is from Greg James. Had the number one team from week 5 on. Lost Rashee Rice and Devontae Adams. Josh Jacobs might as well have sat, and Goff looked like the version of the Rams traded. To finish it off, Ted had the flu. And to start the season, I was worried about CMC's health. So, Greg, that was a bit of a downer. Joe Fasani down 25 points going into Monday night. My opponent had Henry. He had Bijan and Pitts, and he won going away. Congratulations on that one, Joe. David, screwed over by Josh Jacobs and Stafford. I fell 4 points shy of the title. Oh, man. And that's another thing I want to talk about. Like, just real quick, Josh Jacobs and maybe the Packers screwed a lot of people, including myself, because they took Jacobs off the injury report, which made you think that he was healthier than he was the week before, and he didn't get any touches. He had like 5 touches in that game. That's a bunch of Bush League horse crap, if you know what I mean.
I got a real quick question. Real quick question to ask you. Should we start valuing players from better teams? Because like we saw like the Raiders shut down Brock Bowers, and some of these other teams are shutting down their fantasy guys. Should we maybe try to avoid some of the really bad teams?
I mean, the Chiefs were not coming into the season as a bad team, and they shut down Rashee Rice.
And I can say that's the hard part is projecting which teams are going to be good and bad every year is a challenge in itself.
Wanda W. lost championship with Gibbs, Cook, and Stafford, their worst games of the entire season, while Williams, Parker, Washington on the bench. Not good. This one here from the Spoonster, 14-0 in the regular season. Not a joke, not a burner league. 12 teams, and 3 out of 4 give up halfway through as they kept losing, but everyone else was active. In the playoff bye week, Mahomes went out. Justin Jefferson went back into being a bum. Jonathan Taylor stopped scoring, and he ends up in 4th place, losing both of his playoff games after going undefeated in the regular season. This one's from Debbie. After losing Quinshawn Judkins and having Devontae Adams out, Ibuka was not playing well. I was going up against Puka and McCaffrey. Yikes. I picked up Pollard, Parker, Washington, McPherson, and the Saints on waivers and won. No, listens daily, never give up. Debbie, we love you.
That's awesome.
From Stats Matt, down 42.9 points with Bijan and the Rams defense on my roster to make it up. Michael Quincell, lost my $50 10-team fan Superflex Dynasty League by 4.9 points after being up 45 points with Pitts and London on Monday night. He got beat because his opponent had Puka and Bijan Robinson. Oh, that's
London got what, 1 pass for 4 yards? That's a bad beat right there. I feel like that's
been
tough.
So good. Here's another one. Maddie No, down 34 to my husband for the championship, had Puka and Bijan. Joked I'd need 60 from Bijan to overcome the deficit. Puka puts up Bijan 62, and DJ Humphries nukes Pook's game winner with the penalties. It's been 12 years since my last championship. Thank you for helping us all. Of course, we appreciate you listening. Brenda Helsley won my league with only 4 players originally drafted, and all of my quarterbacks went down. Wow. That's insane. Here we go. Another one. This one is from Fire Trades. Won my fantasy league 84.7 to 82.8 in what was basically the toilet bowl. It came down to Monday night with Cousins in London. Projections said I was safe. London Taysom blanked the bed, but CMC carried. Both teams had goose eggs. Ugly, unwashable. Still won the title and $800. Congratulations.
Doesn't matter. Hey, you won. You're good.
You won, exactly. Woody V, despite DJ Moore getting me 1 point and Gibbs getting me 5 points, I still won the championship. Congratulations. Brian Rosenberg, I was winning this thing until Jennings goes for 38-yard touchdown, down by 5, and I have Blake Corum. Easy win, right? Not so much. And Blake Corum obviously went down in that game and did not come back. Sarah, football junkie, lost my 24 championship when my stud running back fumbled twice in OT, costing me 18 points. Won it back in 25 by streaming a nobody who popped for 28. Fantasy was a brutal roller coaster, and that is definitely the case.
We love it, though. It's the best. It's still the best.
It is. I will say this, and I've already told you I'm cutting leagues. I've already cut 2. I, on Monday night, was playing against Puka Nacua in 2 leagues and playing with him on my team in 3. And I ended up winning altogether 5. But one of the leagues was the one I talked about, the Sports Illustrated Experts League, where Puka didn't score enough points to beat me. I won by like just over a point. But then in another league, he scored just enough points for me to win by 2. so here's the thing. It's like you're dancing on the edge of a blade. I gotta get out of some of these leagues.
Well, this is what I try to never look at who my opponent has every single week, so I don't get into that situation.
So how do you not do it, Marcus?
I do my best not to look at it because I don't want to be in that situation where I'm trying to thread the needle. It's because you and I are in a lot of leagues. It's not fun to do that. So I really try to, like, on ESPN, you can just see the score projections. You don't have to go look at, all the players. That's the way I like to do it. I'm also a psycho. I get it.
You are definitely a psycho, but I love you.
We love Dynasty football. All right, that is it for today's show. We'd like to thank you for making Locked On Dynasty Football your first listen every single day. Go download the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We are free and available on all platforms. Follow Fabs on Twitter at Michael_Fabiano. I'm at Marcus_Mosher. Enjoy the new year. We'll see you right back here on Thursday.